as a result of the fact that there are heaps of garbage just everywhere in that market. Innocent has more.
Though the Mbopi market in Douala is also known for its dirty nature, Block 6 of this commercial center is most nasty, according to traders and members of the project committee installed by the Douala City Mayor on December 22nd, 2020 to run the market orderly and in a sanitary state during their 3 years mandate.
Bloc 6, l'un des grands blocs, est tellement sale. Et nous avions voulu donc lancer son balayage solennellement aujourd'hui.
We decided to come to this block 6, which is, if you can see, is the dirtiest block in the market. So we decided to come and start our activities here.
They, alongside the supervisory committee, launched a general clean-up of the Mbopi market this April 29th. According to Ngefak Alain Pascal, president of the follow-up committee of Block 2 in the Mbopi market, the clean-up activity launched should be continued by the traders daily and not solely on a Thursday, so as to keep the market forever clean. Apart from waging war against insanitary states of the market, disorder and insecurity are not left out.
We also have security that is disturbing us. We lose a lot, so we try to organize how we can manage the market for these few years for our mandate. Then the security men will be paying them each month 2,000 francs per store, and other activities that will be coming up. We have also the gate, the garage. And we also have these trucks, lorry that are loading here that people can see. But in future, before 15th of May, everything will be okay.
Collaboration of traders in this Mbopi market is expected for the benefit of all.
Let the business people cooperate with us. When they cooperate with us, everything will be good. And if those people are working like this, they work good job, I think paying them will not be anything to discuss, to argue. The minimum price for the cleaning up for every store is 1,000 francs.
2,000 francs par magasin, par boutique, par étal au niveau du gardiennage.
Traders hailed this move and pledged to collaborate with the project committee members and those of the follow-up committee for the goal of cleanliness to be scored.
Environmentalists raise concerns over indiscriminate waste disposal and poor waste management in major cities of Cameroon, including Yaoundé and Douala. Waterways are filled with plastic bottles and other waste, and this is a serious threat to the environment. And of course, some of the situations in some neighborhoods, notably during rainfall, floods, and other problems are emanating from indiscriminate water waste disposal. And this is why Reverend Father Innocent Akume Ufon, priest, Mill Hill missionary, and environmentalist, has engaged himself in a project to collect all the waste bottles that are being disposed indiscriminately around the neighborhood in order to make use of them in a garden that he has established in the Bojongo in the Douala 4 subdivision. And he is using those bottles to produce some walls and to produce other things that are useful and more environmental friendly. He has been doing this for over a year, and he's collected already 10,000 of those bottles that you can see there. And this is something that he had been doing before in Kenya, and he has brought it here to Cameroon. For over a year he has been collecting these bottles that you're seeing there to make use of them in an environmentally friendly manner. As you can see, those bottles used there to produce or to establish some walls in a garden that he is cultivating there in Bojongo in the Douala 4 subdivision. We're going to talk more about what you're seeing there in this edition of the 6 p.m. newscast on Equinoxe Television. Now on to something else. We talk about the coronavirus vaccination. After the launch of the vaccination in the Kumba, in the Meme Division, southwest region of the Republic of Cameroon, it was time today for the Indian Division and the Senior Divisional Officer Fowang Lawrence, leading his people, took his own vaccination and urged the people to make themselves available for the coronavirus vaccination. There is just a report.
Though voluntary, Fowang Lawrence, the Senior Divisional Officer for Indian Division, has advised the population to follow his example.
Yes, I want to say I've accomplished to me, it's a civic responsibility to protect myself, my family, my entourage, and why not the whole population of Indian Division. But I want to call on the population of Indian Division to emulate the example of their SEO this morning.
Carrying out vaccination against COVID-19 on camera, Friday, April 30, 2021 in Mundemba, the divisional headquarters, the Chief Executive Officer of Indian Division took time to applaud the tenacity exhibited by health personnel working in Indian Division.
I also want to use this opportunity to thank all the health personnel of Indian Division. Despite the risk, despite the lack of personnel, despite the lack of adequate medical facilities, have been doing all their best, putting their life at risk to make sure that COVID-19 is not propagated in their division. And I say kudos to them.
From when COVID-19 was announced in Cameroon, Indian Division has recorded 2 COVID-19 related deaths.
I told you earlier in the headlines that at least 4 soldiers have been killed by armed men in Galim. It is a locality in the Bambutus Division, West region of the Republic of Cameroon. And the Senior Divisional Officer of Bambutus Division in a statement has said that the armed men came in to the locality from Goketunja Division in the crisis-stricken northwest region of the Republic of Cameroon and launched an attack on a military base in Galim, and 4 soldiers have been killed. This is not the first time that armed men are attacking localities close to the crisis-stricken northwest and southwest regions of the country. The 4-year-long armed conflict has been spilling over from the 2 English-speaking regions affected by the security tensions into localities in the littoral and the west regions of the country, close to those 2 regions. And this time, that was last night, was the turn of Galim in the Bambutus Division, and the armed men, according to the Senior Divisional Officer, launched an attack on a military base, killing at least 4 soldiers. For me, Armstrong Sander has more. For me, Armstrong Sander with details on the last attack by armed men in a locality close to the border with the crisis-stricken English-speaking regions of the Republic of Cameroon. 4 soldiers confirmed dead in that attack last night by armed men who are said to have come into Galim in the Bambutus Division from the Ngokutunja Division. We'll be coming back to that report shortly. Time for us to go out of the country to talk about a great tragedy. Dozens killed in Israel's religious festival stampede. At least 44 people were killed and 150 others injured following a crash during the celebration of Lag Baomer at Mount Meron. Courtesy Euronews.
The catastrophic crash unfolded within minutes as thousands tried to make their way through a narrow passage leading from the festival's main site. Some people were reported to have slipped as they walked down a section of metal stairs. They were engulfed in the unstoppable mass surging behind them, adults and children falling one after the other. Up to 100,000 had packed into the venue in northern Israel, more than in previous years. The organisers tried to evacuate the area by other routes, but amid the chaos and panic, the situation worsened. Some witnesses said the police didn't act quickly enough to remove barriers that were hemming people in.
More people arrived, and more from all sides. A lot of people arrived, and the police wouldn't let them exit. So people started to be folded on top of each other, and they were squashed on top of each other. The police didn't open the passageway until it crashed, and all the crowd was pushed to the sides.
Hours later, the full horror of the disaster was clear as workers collected victims' belongings. This was Israel's first mass religious event since the lifting of pandemic restrictions. It became one of the deadliest civilian tragedies in the country's history. Neil O'Reilly, Euronews.
A great tragedy in Israel. At least 44 persons confirmed dead and 150 others injured in a stampede in Israel's religious festival. Now we go back to Galim with Fomi Armstrong-Sander, who is bringing to us details and fresh news from the Bamboo Tools division, where armed men have killed at least 4 soldiers, and the senior divisional officer of that administrative unit made a press statement giving some details on what happened in Galim, and of course indicating that the armed men came in from the Ngokotunjo division and launched an attack on a military base. Smart Jikan, or rather for me, Armstrong-Sander, has the details in this report.
According to the senior divisional officer for the Bamboo Tools division, the armed attack took place between midnight and 2 a.m. at the extended security post of Menfung in Galim subdivision. He reveals that the attack left 4 soldiers killed, 1 severely wounded and hospitalized in Bafoussam.
Au bout du compte, nous avons perdu 4 militaires et un blessé grave.
The shootout, he says, also left some attackers dead, with their lifeless bodies found in bushes by local inhabitants. The senior divisional officer for the Bamboo Tools and local sources said the attackers, over 15 numbers, came on board motorbikes and opened fire directly at the military base in Menfung in a modus operandi typical of armed separatists. While on his hospital bed in Bafoussam, the injured soldier was visited by the West Regional Governor, Awa Fonka Augustine. Back in the Bamboo Tools division, the senior divisional officer held a security meeting with local stakeholders, during which he preached vigilance to all and collaboration with the military to the local population. The SDO said soldiers should be more vigilant as separatists use women. Point is that they use women, the Anglophone women crossing over. Some of these women use money and drinks to seduce our soldiers. When our soldiers go out with them, the women then monitor and master everything about our soldiers and their camp to monitor their activities. The senior divisional officer and local sources say the attack was launched by separatists from Bafanji in the Ngokotunja division of the Northwest region. In March 2020, a similar separatist attack in Galim left 5 soldiers dead. The March 8, 2020 attack targeted the Galim police and gendarmerie posts.
Talking Point is up next. Thank you for staying with us in Talking Points. Our guest is Reverend Father Innocent Akume Wufon. He's parish priest of St. Raphael in the Douala 4 subdivision. He's a Mill Hill missionary and environmentalist. Thank you for joining us today, Reverend Father.
Thank you very much for inviting me again. It's a pleasure to be back.
We begin with the situation there in Galim, in the west region of the country, the crisis in the northwest and southwest regions of the Republic spilling over into parts of the west region. 4 soldiers killed by armed men.
I think that is the sad reality we are living with at the moment, and I'm sure so many people, and even myself on this platform, we have said we really need to sit down and dialogue among ourselves. True peace will come when there is dialogue, when there is tolerance, and when we listen to one another. I am looking forward, because that is my home. I'm looking forward to the day when there will be that kind of a dialogue and we can now live together as brothers and sisters. But at the moment, it seems it's far from being the reality.
Efforts have been made by government and other stakeholders. There was already a dialogue and other things happening, but the situation seems to be worse.
It is very clear that the efforts are not enough right from the side of the government. The efforts are not enough. So many people have said it, and we keep on saying that the efforts which the government has made is not enough. Let them go further and do the noble thing to be humble enough. Humility is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. And yet we want to pride ourselves in the strength of the military, and yet that doesn't give us strength. So let them just do the noble thing, to humble themselves, call the other side, and let them sit on the table and they talk like brothers, and I'm sure there will be a solution that will come up.
All right, we're going to talk about environmental issues now. You're an environmentalist, and we're talking about a problem that has become more or less hard, not just too difficult to crack seemingly, because the problem has been there year in, year out. Indiscriminate waste disposal that is seriously threatening the environment. When we look at waterways in Douala, most often they are filled by bottles that have been deposited there by who? I don't know. The population probably, by us,
I say.
And causing floods and all what we can imagine as environmental hazards. When you look at all what is happening today, and the behavior of the people and all what is happening around these issues of environment and waste disposal, what's your analysis of the problem?
First thing which I want to say is, when we talk about environment, the first thing people run into is to think about trees, to think about forests, to think about protected species. But the environment is where we stay, our condition, our living condition, our environment, where we stay, the condition in which we're living in. And a lot of the problem comes out of ignorance. People have not been able to link sickness to the poor management of environment. People have not been able to link poor yield to the poor management of environment. People have not been able to link poor road network with our poor management of environment. So there's a whole lot of ignorance in the Cameroonian society in terms of managing the environment. When you talk of environment, people just go, oh, we don't have to plant trees, we have a lot of forest. No, the environment is our condition, the condition in which we are living in. Is that condition conducive or not? That is what we are trying to ask the people. Is that conducive? Is where you live, is it conducive enough for you to live?
In slums in particular, or some remote areas of the town, waterways and streams are often filled with plastic bottles. At the same time, when the rains come, there is flood, there is houses are overflooded, and people don't seem to be conscious of the fact that the waterways that are blocked by the plastic bottles, definitely dropped by them, thrown by them, is part of the cause of the floods affecting them.
Yeah, and that is what I've been struggling to do in the 1 year that I've been in, probably 2 years that I've been in Cameroon. I did a little bit when I was in Pekadis, but now I'm doing it in Bojongo in a more realistic way, to let people know that even malaria we have sometimes is because we manage our environment very poorly. The water pools which we have, the dysentery which we have, the cholera which we have, all those is because we don't manage this environment very, very well. And who are those? It's all of us. And I said our community is very ignorant. When I say all of us, you just move, drive in a taxi, how many people litter? Just even within Equinoxe, if I would say, I will be very sure that there are so many journalists who will not be conscious of what they throw out. So
it's very easy today to see somebody chewing maybe biscuit, and then drops the packaging somewhere on the streets. Oranges, drop it anywhere. Dates, just drop in on the streets everywhere.
It's very common.
Not far from the trash can.
Yes, it's very common. I'll tell you something. Once I went to Limbe with a group of friends. One is a lawyer, the other they're all educated people. And I was driving. And I think we were drinking soft drinks. And just immediately he finishes, he drops it out. I reversed the car. About 500 meters behind, I reversed the car. And they were like, oh, what is wrong? I said, pick it. You can't be in my car and you do that. But people get offended. And he picked it and he put it in my car. And you can see what I do with those plastic bottles. What I want to tell people is that nothing that God made is useless. Even the plastic bottles which we are dumping can become a source of revenue, can be a source of income. Plastics can be transformed. Papers can be transformed. Iron can be transformed. Glass can be transformed. So how can we manage this environment in such a way that is more life-giving and sustainable?
And that's what you have been trying to do for the past 1 year. That is at the level of Cameroon, because you're already doing that in Kenya. Can you tell us more about what you're doing in Bojongo? We saw in the images a garden and some plastic bottles that are used to make some sort of walls and things like that.
The first thing is, I was celebrating 10 years as a priest. This year, I'm celebrating 10 years. On March the 5th, I was celebrating 10 years. So I asked myself, what can I do for the environment? What can I do to the world? Rather than asking for gifts and money. So I asked people to help me pick plastic bottles. And I created a Facebook page called 3650 Plastic at 10. So I wanted to pick a plastic bottle for every day that I was a priest. And so I started this movement and I started picking. The first day I discovered I picked 1,000 bottles. That was impression. That was very...
1,000 bottles.
And at the end, I picked about 10,000 bottles. And I said, what can I do with these plastic bottles? And I discovered that, wow, there's so many things you can do with it. So I made my, what I call my ecological garden. Because we have a lot of animals coming around there to get in. So to protect the garden, I use the plastic bottles to fence it. I also use the plastic bottles to do the partitioning within the garden. So here I'll plant jama, for example. Here I have spinach, here I have pepper, here I have... So I use the plastic bottles to do that. I use the bottle tops to make tables. I'm sure you saw the tables where there was a computer on it and there was a printer on it. I used the bottle top. It took me time just to put them together. And now that's what we use. So something which people threw away, something which seemed useless, has become useful and beneficial to me. All that God created was good, but we can use it in such a way that is not sustainable or is not good.
All right. Now, for now, people have been helping you to collect the bottles around, and you've already collected 10,000. How far do you intend to go with this project?
There are a couple of people now who are asking me to come to their homes and help them use that plastic bottles. One of the intention I have is to bring young people together, not to just do what I am doing, to be creative. What else can they do with plastic bottles? I know people are already doing recycling in a big firm, but we don't all have to rush into recycling. Because when you ask people, wait, let's go into recycling, they start thinking, I don't have the capital to buy the big machines. But we can do recycling at a very small level, at the level of your home. You make a table, you make a garden. So far, what I'm thinking of doing is to expand the garden and to do it to other people. I call it a kitchen garden. A small kitchen garden behind your compound, and you plant your vegetables, you plant your spices, and you can make a living out of it.
When you look at some of those tables that you made out of the lids of the bottles, they seem to be made up of so many of those lids.
Yes.
How do you put them together and give it that color? So blue, red, and something like that. It's looking really beautiful.
It actually took me time. I will tell you, those things are the fruits of COVID. When there was some kind of a lockdown and everybody was in their homes, there were no masses, so we're confined. And because we're confined physically, but my mind wasn't confined. So I started thinking, what can I do? Because I was already into the plastics. I was already gathering them. So what can I do with these plastics that would add value rather than just throwing? So I actually did them one after another. I gummed them together, put them together one after another. It's about 3,000. One is about 3,000. You put them just together. Yes, you need patience. But there are a lot of idle youths around looking for a job. And so many people have asked me, Father, can you sell for me one? I don't have that time to do it. My idea is just to tell the young people, there is a lot that we can do. There's a lot that we throw, and yet which is still very valuable. How can we tap and use those things which are valuable and we are throwing them away?
You started doing this in Kenya. What can we pick out of the Kenyan example for as far as management of waste? And
what I'll say is we had a group called Kali Youth Network for Environmental Sustainability, which is based in Kenya. And it's all about working with young people, sensitizing, educating them, and doing advocacy, which is very important. And that is where we are lagging at the level of Cameroon, because in terms of awareness and education, people have the knowledge to pass exams, but not the knowledge which is practical. How can we let people become very practical with the environment? That is the problem. Second thing is advocacy. Do we have enough people who will come and sit and say, no, we don't want this rubbish to be put here? Can we have enough people who come and say, because when we talk of environment, it's not only about the trash, it's also about the way we build. One of the things, it's a very broad topic, the way we build. Somebody has a plot and he builds his fence, his house, by the way, the wall of his house, on the limit.
And leaves no space for water to flow.
For water, for light, for air. That is against the environment. And yet we are all comfortable. So there is no advocacy. There's nobody who can fight for the voiceless. Then you find that the passage for water has been blocked, the passage for light has been blocked, the passage for air has been blocked, and we keep on getting sick and we complain. So at the level of advocacy, we are still backward. Then the third pillar is the pillar of action. Of course, there are actions happening, but very small, in little corners. And how does it affect the life of the community? I know my Christians are beginning to pick it up. I go to homes now, I see people separating the perishables and non-perishables, which is already beginning to take care of the environment. So I want to appreciate my Christians of Bojongo for also supporting me in my adventure.
And you talked about education. There seemed to be a serious problem there at the level of education. Some of the adults that we see today behaving the way they are behaving probably comes from how they were brought up in their homes, what they were taught in school about the environment, about friendly behaviors, environmental friendly behaviors and unfriendly behaviors, and some of those things seem not to be the portion, so to speak, of many Cameroonians today. It's easy to see people around just doing things that are contrary to what should be done to preserve the environment.
I will tell you this, it's very interesting. I think in 2018 I taught English in one school in Pekadis, and I discovered that in the curriculum they talk a lot about the environment. So people have the knowledge, but people don't just have the practicality. So if you ask a child, what are the effects of littering? He will tell you. What are the effects of poor construction? He will tell you. But do you live it? Do you live it? I think the Cameroonian has become, I call it an arrogant society. Just permit me say that. I call it the arrogant society, where everybody knows everything, everybody claims to know it, nobody wants to learn. Nobody wants to support an initiative which will bring harmony, joy, peace. No. I think it's the arrogance that is making us now just live where we are, because people just say, okay, tout le monde le fait, everybody does it. You know, when I was picking those plastic bottles, they said, mon père, tu penses que tu peux changer d'oie là? That's the question they asked me. Second, people ask me, c'est à vendre? Si c'est à vendre, on va ramasser. That is the question. That's the way people were looking at it.
There should be some sort of a mentality shift.
The Pope, actually I'm inspired by the Pope's book, which is called Laudato Si. He says there must be a paradigm shift, an ecological paradigm shift, a new way of thinking, a new way of relating with our environment, a new way completely. We are not only arrogant to ourselves, but we are arrogant to the environment. And yet, we are the biggest beneficiary to the environment. Who suffers more? The human beings. There are a lot of illnesses which are coming up because we have poorly managed this environment. What do we do? Unfortunately as well, a lot of the religious leaders don't talk about the environment as they should. They don't. Unfortunately for us as well, a lot of our leaders are not even conscious of what are their responsibilities about the environment. When we talk about environment, nous avons les arbres. Oh, il y a les animaux. That is not it. As I've told you, even the building pattern is part of the environmental issues which we have.
What is the Pope saying in his book about the new way in which human beings should relate to the environment?
That we should change. That we are living in a greedy world. We must move away from greed, because one of the things which is making us mismanage the environment is greed. What causes exploitation of the forest is greed. What makes people just litter around is greed. You're not conscious of your brother's need. Self-centeredness. But the Pope also says politics and the economy of the environment must be looked into. Because, for example, I will not tell somebody in the village not to cut trees if at all they don't have money to buy a stove or a gas. I'll not tell them not to cut the trees if that is what they have to cut, sell for their livelihood. So how do we manage the economy of our environment so that all of us are beneficiaries? So one of the causes of environmental degradation is actually poor politics. It's here in the book. The Pope says it. We must change our politics.
Policies on friendly policies, or policies that are friendly to the environment, should be put in place to ensure some kind of sustainable development.
The politics, the policies are there, but the politics as well. If we don't have very good politics, for example, people fight among themselves. There is greedy, there is corruption, there is inadequate distribution of wealth. It leads to environmental degradation.
Many people finding themselves in positions in which they are compelled to exploit, to grossly exploit the environment without necessarily doing some kind of replacement, like replanting of trees and all of that. Right, Reverend Father Innocent Akume Ufon, priest, Mill Hill missionary, environmentalist. Thank you for your time.
Thank you too for inviting me. I hope to come back again to talk more about the environment. Sure. It is my passion, and you're welcome to come and visit my garden. I think I'm already harvesting some jama from there, spinach. Maybe you'll be lucky to have some. Thank you.
Right, thank you for your time. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. Equinoxe is up next.